We're here for Elite Dangerous, and this is David Braben, and this is John, our pilot. So we start off in the hangar. What are you going to fly?
So at the moment I'm in the Viper. It's one of the heavier fighter ships. Really, really nice to fly. I like this one.
How many ships have you already done? How many ships are already in the game?
Well, we have the Eagle, the Sidewinder, the Cobra, the Viper, the Lakon Type 6, the Lakon Type 9 and the Hauler. So currently we're 7, and one by one we're introducing the new ships as we're happy with them. And I think we've also got, currently non-playable, we've got Imperial fighters and Federal fighters as well, so it's sort of 9. And we're gradually racking them up. Each has different specialities. So this ship, if you think of it as it's almost a small warship. So we have ever bigger ones. So this is a combat-leaning ship, and is quite expensive in the game. So the Sidewinder, which is the one you start with, is cheap, but general purpose, and a really good ship. It can carry 4 tons of cargo, which initially seems like a lot, but actually is a really tiny amount. You've got the Cobra, which is a nice another general purpose ship, but much bigger, and also known to people from the previous Elite games. This Viper is great because it's the default police ship as well. It's it's big enough to go around to be self-supporting, but also quite a threat in battle. So that's why we're using this. It's also new to beta. So previous to this, it wasn't available in the game. We did show it in some screenshots early on, and even way back to the Kickstarter, we showed some imagery of it.
And you just showed how you can customize?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a lot of customization options. That's one of the things I really love about it, is that we can spec out. I've already fitted some Class 3 gimbal beam lasers, very powerful, some multi-cannons on here, really nice loadout, going to be very effective. One of the great things that's been added in Beta 1 is we've got paint jobs now, so we can pick one for your native country. If you go ahead and choose which one you like.
Okay, I guess we'll have to take Germany, or the fans are going to protest. Sorry.
No, I love it. I love the customization on those. Really, really, really cool feature.
And I love that it's all scuffed, that you have all those marks, that it has been in a battle.
Well, also you can, obviously when you apply a paint job, it gets much cleaner, and it gradually gets dirtier again. As you can see, we've got a fair amount of money here for testing. But what I love with this is that the more variation and customization we have, I think it's much sort of better from a player point of view anyway. You know, we see the gradual richness coming into the game, choosing the different weapons. So, for example, the choice of the beam lasers we had. If you have a gimbaled version of the weapon, you have to get a slightly smaller one than if you have a fixed weapon. But it makes it much easier from a combat point of view. And so here, if we go and we're just looking at missions as well. So this is the other thing that's new to beta. So if we choose a mission here, we can see there's a mission here taking medicines to a place called Opala. So if we accept this, what you can do is choose a mission, and then any remaining cargo space you can fit out with whatever you think would be useful to go there, because you can do many sort of things at once. But what we're seeing here also is a map of the nearby systems. Oops.
Okay. And guessing from the names, there are lots of star systems that are actually in existence.
These are all real. Every single one here is real in the night sky. And this is a sphere which is roughly 38,000 cubic light years in volume, and we're still centered on the constellation I-Bootis, which is visible in the night sky. Sorry, Bootis. I-Bootis is one of the stars in it. And what I really love is that this is what it's like there. These are real systems. We've made them as accurate as we possibly can. These lines show where you can jump, and if you want to show some of the trade. So we've got all sorts of views here to help you plan what you're doing. These different colours show you all the different trade goods that are being traded between the systems. You're going to try turning some of those off. So, for example, if we want to we've got a particular good, we can see where that's carried. So this is an aid to help you work out what makes sense, where to go. If you've got cargo of food or some, I don't know, Lavian brandy, you know, where is the demand for it? Now, this is real data. This data at the start of the beta came from our AI traders. So we've been running AI traders around the galaxy for ages. So we know where the routes should be. And we're gradually replacing that with real-world data from players.
Okay, So this is actually what the players are trading, where they are going, and where the profits are biggest.
That's right. And it will gradually change. So one of the things that we've done, and we've been covering in our newsletter, is the way the trade goods and the politics of the game have changed. Do you want to get on with the mission while I talk about it? So one of the things we did is a trade good called progenitor cells. Now, these are cells where you can sort of prolong your life, if you like, sort of stem cell type things. And parallel to that, we have in Erenin, which is a federal system, we have rebels who are trying to take over the system. And they had poisoned these progenitor cells. And we're gradually showing that there's politics behind this. These rebels are sort of anti-capitalist, anti-federal, the federation that ruling the system. They're wanting the system to become independent. Now, you can choose to side with either side. You think the federal oppressors, they don't like this sort of freedom. Or looking at the rebels, who are the whole anti-capitalist thing. Essentially, it's only rich people that buy progenitor cells. So poisoning them and the protest, which is why the good was made illegal. But of course, all the players trading in it can now trade on the black market at a much higher price because people still want them, there's still demand. So there's this whole interesting cycle. And suddenly that affected the trade goods, it affected where you could take them and how you traded them. And for those people with cargoes already of progenitor cells, is interesting. Now, interesting here, we just launched from Owlin. This is looking at the station up close. You can sort of see as it's rotating, see the shadow moving around. But what's interesting, you can also see inside the station. So this is a sort of luxurious area, rotating. We've got one gravity, which is why it's the radius of the ring. Some of the stations also have smaller rings, which is half a gravity. The beauty with that is at half a gravity, an athletic human probably could fly.
At least, yeah. Or you're very athletic. You can jump very high,
right.
And
so thinking about that in space, what would you do if you had that choice? But the other beauty, which apparently someone has calculated, the area of that is the same as the PlayStation base in GTA 4. Just to put it in perspective, how big that station is.
Okay, so the space in the ring where you can live.
Yeah. You know, and the point is that these things, that's a luxury. That's a high-tech place, luxurious, where people would like to live. And I think, looking at the sort of winding forward to the future, thinking what it would be like to live in space, it's not all going to be spacesuits, and it will be comfortable. It will be people sitting, even sunbathing. Do you know what I mean? It's not necessarily the negativity.
People who can buy progenitor cells can buy a house in that station.
Whereas you have other people living in horrible boxes in these sort of older stations, not having that sort of luxurious experience. So here we've arrived now at Opala, which is the place we were going to be taking this thing. We're in Super Cruise, and we're going to travel to this station, which is where they've asked us to go. One of the things you've added to beta, you saw the star, you saw all the magnetic effects around it. One of the things that we're also looking at doing is how the game unfolds in terms of visual quality. One of the things that we did many, many years ago with a game called Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 that came out in 2004 is we put in huge range of settings you could use for detail and all that sort of thing. And we're trying to do the same with Elite, making sort of future-proofing it. So you've seen some of the 4K pictures we've uploaded, or even 16K pictures, which is ludicrous. But also making sure the models and the rendering can cope with that resolution.
At what resolution are we playing now, and which hardware does it run?
So we're playing at 1080p on a PC. Is this a 780, John? 780 graphics card. It's, I think, an 8-core system. But you won't really notice because it's running at a solid 60 frames a second, which is how we've tuned the game. That's how we want people to play it.
So if you have a high-end system, you can really get the best out of it.
Yeah, and you can turn the detail up and up. So here we have an interesting dilemma. We were travelling to the place with our mission, and we've been pulled out of hyperspace, and here is a battle going on. We see 3 Lakon Type 9s. These are big, heavy traders. Now, depending on your outlook, they're juicy targets because they're full of cargo, or they're poor individuals who've been attacked by these pirates. Oh, sorry, John. So you can see these sort of giant ships are being chased by these little sidewinders. And we have an interest. So which would you like? Who should we side with? Should we side with the pirates and take out the cargo? Should we side with the poor traders? Or should we just wait and take the pickings from the debris?
I'd say help the traders.
Okay, go for it.
Let's go.
So there are the big traders. You can see them So I don't know if you've seen before, these are giant 3-story cockpits even. The ships are huge, great, essentially trucks of the skies. And here is a pirate who's been attacking, so we've now taken sides and we're after them. Now, we've got actually a very powerful ship here. And so, and John is such a good pilot as well. So there you go, one down.
So some of the things I'm doing here is we've got the extra level detail you can get in power management here, so I can switch more power into weapons or energy or shields, that sort of thing. It gives me the advantage over the other fighters as I'm attacking here. The beam lasers, they take a lot of energy, so I need to put more power into weapons, but I've also got to take into account the heat that's being generated on there. There's lovely levels of detail in there that you don't need to learn, but once you get used to it, you can become more proficient.
Okay. And it's great to see games again being played with a joystick, with the first control.
Oh, it is amazing. I mean, this is the resurgence of the PC game, you know, where complexity is not necessarily a bad thing. You can see what John's doing, using the beam lasers to bring the shields down, and then the cannons to take out the hull, which does much more damage on the hull. The shields back up.
I'm also very interested in the setup of the Galaxy, because with the first Elite games, when you had to measure the space available in kilobytes, actually, you managed to create out of a seed a whole galaxy. So I'm very curious how big and how detailed this is going to be with our technology today.
Well, this is very, very big, very detailed. We've got 400 billion star systems in there. Something like 160,000 of them have been typed in from real star data, which is, that in itself is a huge number. And there we go. Well done. So, in fact, here in the galaxy, if you zoom right out, you will see this is our real galaxy. These are all real stars. That's really what it's like, as best we can make it. And as you sort of zoom back in again, you can sort of see there's an area here where the sort of volume around the centre, where these are all real stars that you can all visit. But if we look in a telescope, most of these faint red stars, the M-class stars, you can only see out to about 40 light years. Beyond that, there are fewer and fewer of them. But that's not the case. So even with Hubble, they're too faint to see. But there is a lot of evidence to suggest that those are just the same number, 100 light years, 200 light years away. So the further away we go, we generate those procedurally to fit the data, because we know what the densities are based on the gravity. Because the larger stars, we can see a lot further away. Larger stars like Polaris, which is quite a way away, but we can see it because it's super bright. And beyond that, we have things like Type A and Type O stars, which are super giant, really bright. We can see right across the galaxy.
I love that it's so important to you to make it realistic, the space. Okay.
That's where the guy's sitting. You just see the scale of these trading ships. Sorry.
I just love it. I think it's very interesting that it's important to you that the space is realistic, that you feel kind of, yeah, that's really out there. It could be like this in a few hundred years.
Well, why not? I mean, but I love the way that you see a constellation. Like you can visit every single one of these stars. Isn't that amazing?
Nothing is just background.
No. That's right. It's not just a background picture. So with all of that, the other thing we're doing is building out the detail of the world. You know, it's great, essentially developing in the public eye. You know, we're building things one at a time in a very carefully considered order. We've now got the framework for the game, and we're populating it with more and more gameplay. So currently, it's becoming more. There are more and more things you can encounter, and whether the politics that I've touched on already, you know, how it affects what the player does affects things. So a lot of these things, where the balance of players go, if the players side with a particular side. So, for example, if there's a gold rush, all the players are going to pile in to try and make money out of the gold. But actually, a lot of players will make money selling things to the player or protecting the people with the gold. You know, so
mining the miners.
Exactly, absolutely. Because it's easier to get it out of a ship once people have mined it rather than doing it one unit at a time. So all of those things, that dynamic, and the gold rush system, you will see that then they will come in, there'll be a temporary space station, which is essentially a starship, and then they'll start building, you'll see them building a space station, there'll be an opening ceremony. You know, it's like the lyrics of Telegraph Road. You gradually see it built up, then comes the law, and then suddenly it's a safe system, and it's no longer, it becomes mined out. Because you've had thousands of players mining the gold, gradually there won't be any gold.
living world. You're also implementing the Oculus Rift, which, and I think a game like this is perfect for that because you're in the cockpit. Yeah. But still, what's your how does it work? Have you tried it out? Because many people really get sick to the stomach when they try it.
Well, I think that, there are a lot of things that can make you sick. For example, when you move and yet you haven't moved, that can, because you're in a ear, your balance doesn't match. I found in some games where the thing moves you and it doesn't feel right. But I think it's perfect in this because you're sitting down, you're in a cockpit, and it feels right for the game. I think the thing is we're going to see a lot of head-mounted displays coming, and sporting Oculus Rift is just one way to do that. I would absolutely try it. In fact, after this, if you want to go through and try it, it's great. We've got DK2s here. But it is a wonderful experience. But the point is, we are building a great game here, and that's just one of the ways you can experience it. On the Oculus Rift, but also, as we go forward, we're looking, we're writing this game for ourselves, for the wider community, and we will support anything that's exciting. We support 3D displays, for example, which feels really good. We support Track IR. All of these things, people in the community have said, why don't we do this? And we thought, actually, we can do that. This is the great thing about developing this way. People can be part of that. People can influence what it is we want to do, like supporting DK2. So you can actually, in the Type 9, you can look around, you can see your weapons deploy. It feels wonderful.
You said this way of developing something, is that kind of more pressure or less pressure as working with a publisher?
It's different pressure. But I think the important thing is it's pressure that relates more to the game. If you've got people who are fundamentally fans of the game that we're making, then the input is much more closely aligned with what we want to do. Oh, John can just dock.
Very nice docking maneuver.
Very nice, yeah. Although we do have docking computers now.
Oh, and when do you get them? Do you also have to...
Buy them in the game.
Yeah. And I remember that was kind of the point where many people in the first Elite game said, now I've reached everything, I've got my docking computer.
But I think comparing to going to the publisher thing, working with a publisher, it's behind closed doors, and ultimately, things are done, we're delivered to a publisher, but then people only eventually see it when it's finally released. And you test with focus tests and things like that, but that's never quite the same. Essentially, we've got this continual group who are all saying, oh yes, this is working well, and we're tracking what people are doing. It sort of feels like we're developing for real. We're really working with the people who will eventually play the game. And it's just like developing for ourselves. We're not developing for an imagined group, and I think that's one of the big differences.
And it's also a chance to bring back these genres that are kind of dying out over the time. Do you follow also Star Citizen and sure, what happens with that? You're a backer, okay? I'm wondering whether he's a backer of yours.
He is.
He is.
Yeah.
That's great. So, if you would describe how kind of this works, do you share the community? Are people going to be play both, or have you kind of different interest group?
Well, absolutely. I'm a fan of. Historically, I love science fiction books, and I avidly would read them. And it's just because Larry Niven brings out a book doesn't mean I won't really read another. This is the point. And it's a type of game that's been really sort of left on the shelf for a long time. I think there are various reasons, and actually going back to the publishers, it's often to do with the sort of spreadsheet development, if you like, where the people look at the likely return from such a game, and they look at a game that's cost so much a number of years ago. So I think the last big game in this, or close to this, was probably Freelancer, which didn't do brilliantly, but it was a nice game. Whereas the publishers are saying, well, let's sold this many units, I'm not sure, let's make another first-person shooter. So I think we've had an oversupply of first-person shooter games, which I'm not criticising them, but I just feel I've played a lot of those. And we've had none at all in this area. And what's happened is crowdfunding has enabled that. And I think that's wonderful. We're now getting games that people really want. There's been a huge pent-up demand. And, it doesn't matter, we're in a different time scale anyway. There'll be this. In the same way I watched Star Wars, it didn't stop me watching Battlestar Galactica on TV or Star Trek. I love them all. They're all different. And these will be different. And there'll be different takes, different emphases. And so it's fine, it's great. And, I think the more successful games we see in this field, the happier I am.
Thank you very much. And thank you, John, for a great presentation and the perfect docking maneuver.
Well, thank you very much, yeah.
Ich habe Elite Dangerous jetzt gerade selber kurz in einer Demo anspielen können mit der DK2, was das Besondere daran war. Und ich bin normalerweise ein Mensch, der sehr empfindlich ist mit dem Magen für alles, was mit den Head-Mounted Displays zu tun hat. Aber es funktioniert wirklich sehr gut, weil man halt mit dem Cockpit eine Referenz hat, wo man sich befindet und nicht das Gefühl hat, man bewegt sich, ohne dass man sich bewegt, was dann halt eben diese Übelkeit auslöst. Und sie haben mich direkt in ein Schiff gesetzt, wo man ein Cockpit hat, was rings um einen herum praktisch eine Glaskugel ist. Das heißt, wenn man in das erste System springt, dann fühlt man sich, als würde man wirklich im leeren All hängen. Es ist natürlich auch mit der DK2 ist die Auflösung immer noch nicht so wie jetzt auf einem HD-Display, aber es sieht trotzdem ziemlich geil aus. Geholfen hat mir dabei unter anderem der Reinhard. Du bist hier in der Community-Vertretung, in der Community-Hilfe sozusagen für den deutschsprachigen Raum.
Ich bin als Fanbotschafter hier für Frontier Developments und repräsentiere ein wenig unser schönes deutsches Forum elitedangerous.de. Wer vorbeikommen will, Hilfe braucht bei Elite, ihr seid alle willkommen.
Wie bist du dann dazu gekommen, dass du hier sozusagen der Fanbotschafter ist? Haben die Leute von Frontier gezielt geschaut, wer in den Foren aktiv ist?
Wie sie es genau ausgewählt haben, weiß ich nicht. Aber da ich in beiden Foren als Moderator zugange bin, dachte ich mir, ich habe gute Chancen. Also sie haben vor ein paar Wochen in die Foren einen Aufruf geschickt. Wer will, kann sich als Fanbotschafter bewerben. Und da war meine E-Mail schon weg.
Und das heißt, deine Aufgabe ist hier sozusagen auch das Bindeglied zu sein zu den Fans, vor allen Dingen zu den deutschsprachigen?
Genau, und natürlich die deutschsprachigen Presseleute, dass wenigstens einer hier auch alles beantworten kann, soweit ich es kann natürlich. Und durch die Demos führen, also wir haben ja eine Demo hier vorbereitet, wer will, kann natürlich auch sofort selber fliegen. Wie gewünscht, der Gast ist König.
Und letzte Frage, wie lange bist du schon Elite-Fan? Mit welchem hat es angefangen für dich?
Mit dem ersten natürlich. Ich bin alt genug dafür.